So, everyone have a good night. I will see you later.
Yeah. I don't think we can. We cannot make any laws.
That's what I told you.
Yeah, we can try. All right, let's give them a few minutes to clear up, and then we'll start the next item. Huh?
Right, have a
Thank
good
you.
night, everybody. You too, thank you.
Excuse me, are you trying to trick me?
All right, the next item is WagerFarms LLC, Village Home Informational Meeting, interpretation use variance regarding the holding of events at 541 Ulster Heights Road. This is an informational meeting, and the public generally would not be able to speak. We will have plenty of time to speak when we get to the public hearing phase. So, Mr. Coon here.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you give us a general idea of where we're going with this? What we would like to do?
Yes, I think you probably have the application of my wife, Patty. Patty and I have owned the property since 2011. Essentially, based on the application we submitted, we're requesting a interpretation of the accessory use as an event, an occasional event by guests of our property,
By guests of what?
our guests of the property that stay there, in a similar fashion of what's been done since 2013 on an occasional basis as an accessory use. So we are aware that there was a law enacted in December 17th regarding event venue, and we have applied to the planning board for a permit based on that going forward, based on that new law. However, pre-existing that law, we use the house and continue to as a primary use as a residence. Not our residence, but as a short-term rental. And some of the guests host a wedding on the site at the barn.
Without your knowledge?
No, with our knowledge, of course.
Pardon?
With our knowledge, yes, of course.
Just-
And we are present, we are present to make sure that cars are parked properly and things go the way they're supposed to. We always have. Never been an issue, never been a complaint. We did recognize that at one point cars parked on the road. Someone mentioned that to us, it could have been Robin, that we shouldn't have cars on the road, and we created some parking off the road so there's no more cars parked on the road. So we're asking for a interpretation of the accessory use, and that accessory use be allowed to continue with whatever limitations on numbers that you may wish to place on it. And with respect to any building code items that may have been pointed out in today's letter to the zoning board, if you have that, we would have to see that everything in that, we'd have to review that and make sure that everything is complied with, which we would do before there's any further events.
Take that up with the building.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I agree. committee, that's not a zoning board member. So that's the application.
So do you want to go forward with both the interpretation and the use variance, or do you want to go with the interpretation first and then see how that goes and come back and go for the use variance if need be?
Well, I think that the interpretation of what we have been doing is acceptable is the first question. Would it not be?
That would be the way I would see it, but.
Yes. And if you feel that the accessory use, while there's no definition, it's accessory to the primary use in the zoning, and the use as an event, occasional event, is a permitted use in the zone, in the RU zone.
As of whatever the date was, December.
Well, it is in the zoning list of district regulations currently, yes. I'm not sure what it was prior to that. But in any event, if it is used as an accessory use, is that accessory use, and it's occasional, how it's defined, is it 10 times a year? Is it 4 times? Is it? I think that's the interpretation we might be looking for.
How many times a year do you use it on average for a wedding, and what are you looking
So, this is our 7th season.
Can you speak into that?
Yeah, sorry. This is our 7th season doing this. When we started back in 2014, I believe we had 1 event. It grew over the years, 2, 3. The most we had was 2 years ago, prior to COVID. We had 8 events that year, which was a lot. And right from the time that we started doing this, I'm the one that schedules the events. And I kept a limit to it. I turned lots of people away from events because I felt that we didn't want to take advantage of the area, the town, our neighbors. So if I had to say an average since the time we started, maybe 4 or 5. As we've progressed and word of mouth has gone, we don't advertise. People have come to us, but again, I turn many people away because we're not what I would consider a true event venue. I mean, we have lodging, and on occasion the guests ask to have a wedding there, and we are there on the day of the event.
You're there the entire time of the event?
The day of the event, yes, which has always been a Saturday.
So is that the only day that you offer?
So what happens is the people that are there generally, not always, but generally come in on Friday, and the event is on Saturday. So they spend the night Friday night. They have the event on Saturday. They set up, that morning. Then Saturday night they stay again. We have room for 11 guests on that property, and then they kind of tear down and leave on Sunday.
How many people does the barn hold? What is the capacity for the barn and/or your parking?
Parking is, and I think it might have been in the application, I'm not sure, if the planning board and zoning board is gonna, there's some duplication. So there are 55 parking locations. And so there's 2, the rule requires just 2 per parking spot, so 110. The property is 6 acres, so according to the zoning regulations, we could accommodate 250 people, but we limit it to 110 because of the parking. And what was the other question? That was it.
That's it.
Sorry. What did you say the maximum number you had 2 years ago?
8.
8 events. And that's even though when we rent the property, it's a 3-day rental, the event happens on one day. We never have more than 1 event in a 3-day period.
Okay. So how many events are you currently looking to have a year?
I would say 6 to 8.
And what is the time frame? Is there a certain time you start in the spring and a certain time you end in the fall?
It's only, we have something called an event management plan, which lays all this out. Emergency contacts and all those types of things as well, but we generally start, there's no heat in the barn.
So mid-May.
No, so usually start in May, end in late October. The weather can be iffy on both ends, but it's really up to the guests when they want to have their event. And it's not always a wedding, it could be a family reunion, it could be a birthday party, it could be an anniversary party, it could be a class reunion, it could be a hospital fundraiser. There's we had one of those there. So it's charitable as well as non-charitable. So typically the setup does occur the night before. We have tables and chairs there, so they don't have to drag things in. There's not any excess trucks coming in and out for that purpose. And then fine tune on Saturday morning, and then the events usually occur 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock on, and we close. And if there's any music, it's done at 10 p.m. And it's possible in the past it's gone past 10 p.m., but we realized that was a judgment error on our part, and that's not been the case for a while. We also made an error one time putting a 4-light construction light tower in the parking area. So in late October, when it gets dark early, for people to see when they go to their cars, and that was not helpful to the neighbors, no doubt about that. So we don't do that.
There's a lot of questions.
Do you have any rules or regulations that you expect your guests to follow? I mean, do you give them a list of things that are allowed and aren't allowed?
Yes.
If there's a contract.
Okay. And what about alcohol at these events? Do they provide their own and they bring it in?
They have to take care of that themselves. We just provide the venue and the lodging. And they have to follow all the state regulations for that. And if they do something with food, it's catered. They have to hire a caterer. They have to acquire a standalone, nice laboratory trailer that we do hook into the heat, to water and electric. They have to have a standalone set of bathrooms. And alcohol is up to them as well, and they have to have a hired bartender.
Licensed bartender, yes.
Which is state regulation.
And there's somebody to make sure that nobody's leaving
Yes.
who shouldn't be leaving.
Well, we're there and we do the best we can, and that's.
But the bartender legally, a
That's
hired
true.
bartender, it's their position too. And quite often the caterers provide that.
And what about music? How loud is that allowed to be?
Music is governed by the decibel limits by the town statute, I guess, or town rules. And we try to control the music with both the DJ, telling the DJ to not turn it down, and we can close the doors in the front, it faces the road. But we have done a noise study that depicts whether an actual event that shows what the noise is, and it is within the limits of the town rules.
The planning board will
Yes,
study that.
yes. I'm sure they're already doing that.
Anything else? You can come back. So you said this is a short-term rental, basically.
Yes.
You would consider that the principal use of the property?
Residential, yes.
Short-term rental.
Well, it's residential, and short-term rental is allowed as a
Yeah.
as residential, yes.
1 or 2 family dwelling?
It always was a 2-family dwelling, but that's a question for Robin. It may be a single-family dwelling, but it was a 2-family when we purchased it. So if it got changed to 1, I'm not sure how that happened.
You're using it as a 1 or 2, because it looks on the website like you're using it as a 2.
We're using it, there is 2 separate entrances and 2, what you call them, we call them suites or wings, two different wings. Yeah. So we're using it as that. There's 7 bedrooms.
But it's all open inside.
Correct.
Is Wager Farms LLC a working farm?
No, sir.
Does it have any other activities
No.
other than what what's on this property?
No, the reason that was named that is because there were 3 generations of Wagers that owned the property since 1855 or 56, and they were farmers. They had a dairy farm and a poultry farm. And we named it Wager Farm. No animals. No roosters, no chickens.
Did you have any approvals for events prior to December 17, 2020, when they invaded?
No, did not know we needed any.
So, do you guys have any other? So I want to make sure we get this straight. You are looking for, you're going to start with the interpretation. So, is that correct?
Yes.
And we'll leave the
Yes.
variance out for now?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm now looking for 6 to
Pardon?
8 events, 6 to 8 events. Yes, the remainder of October.
That's what you want. And that's what you would want maximum? Well,
That may be, that may differ based on what the planning board decides, but we really need a determination for right now.
yeah, in my opinion, what you were looking for as interpretation right now is whether
Yes.
you are a pre-existing non-conforming
Yes,
use.
correct.
The number is something else. That would be something else, I would think.
I would think so. That would be a use variance.
Yeah. Or maybe area, depends. Depends on how the interpretation goes.
Yes.
All right, so what I would like to do is set up a public hearing for an interpretation as to whether this is a pre-existing non-conforming use and whether it is a permitted use on the property, an event, whether it complies with the event law. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion for a public hearing on August 2nd. Second. Okay, I'm in.
I'm not, by the way, I'm not sure you actually voted on the closure of the previous public hearing. You might just check the minutes on. Maybe you did.
He'll be back. Site visit information. If we wanted to come out and look at the site and look things over, can we contact you?
Yes, you would contact me and Robin, the code enforcement, and the planning department, and Barbara have our numbers. Yes.
Okay.
And we probably wouldn't be available to do that to the end of the month. We have some vacation planned, but yes, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Barbara, you're gonna put that in the paper and send out the legal notices.
Yes. So for the August 2nd.
Did I forget anything? Okay. I think that's it.
So,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And, we'll see you August 2nd. You have a motion to adjourn.
You gotta do the minutes first.
All right. We need a motion to approve some minutes. June,
June 27th meeting.
I make the motion.
Jody, Pat, me. Motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.